Well, we're live. Here we are. Troy Francis and Jack Napier in the house.
Reunited.
Reunited. The band's back together. It's good to see you, man. This is going out to both channels at the same time. So it's going out to my channel plus your channel plus my Twitter and stuff like that. So we're both on each other's channels. But how you doing, man? It's been a little while.
I'm doing well, in all honesty, kind of discovering where I want to go now, where it's like, oh, last year the online business took off well, better than I expected.
Yeah.
Narrations that I wanted to do, I've done. It's just, well, everything turned out great. And now it's kind of like, okay, what do we do now? Because I did travel a bit. Portugal wasn't as great as I hoped.
Okay.
The United States were absolutely amazing. Vince and Rob are just great people. Very the hospitality, words cannot describe. It's just the traveling in and of itself, where it's like you have to go through this airport, then you have to go through these customs. And I just realized it really is the people who you travel with what it's about. And I'm kind of very much homebound. I discovered where it's like, oh, now that I have what I wanted, it's like, what do we do now? And I'm discovering that about myself, that I'm not that outgoing, and could be because of everything is taken care of online these days. And
I mean, I saw a tweet by you that was basically expressing that sentiment, about travel. And obviously, I mean, I'm somewhat the other way because I've traveled. We were just talking off air. I've traveled quite a lot this year already, and we're only in February. But I do sympathise. I do get it. It is a massive pain in the butt, and I'm not. If you've got you're sort of there. Then you've got me, and then you've got James Tusk, who's like here, who's travelling. Who's skipping continents every 2 days. I'm somewhat between the two of you because I'm sort of like, I do like to travel. I do like to go to new places, but it's also a massive pain in the butt. And also, I'm also quite a homebody as well. So what I tend to do is scarper back to London in between trips and just sort of kind of hide and hunker down for a bit, and then think, oh, actually, maybe I wouldn't mind a bit of sunshine, and then go somewhere else. So I'm sort of a bit in between the two. So I do get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's just like I said, I don't mind like seeing the places and things like that. But all the greatest places I've been were with people I really like hanging out with, and I've got those here as well. So I just try to do as much with them as I can and things like that. Yeah. And maybe somewhere in the year I plan something of going out, seeing something very new, but it's not something that I really crave for, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, which is fun because, like you said, you are the complete opposite of that. Okay, not as bad as, or not as much as James. There's nothing bad about that, but it's an interesting contrast because you have seen way more of the world than I have.
I mean, I'll tell you the one thing where and this is obviously what I bang on about all the time, and James does in his content, the passport bro side of things. I mean, it does make a big difference as far as dating is concerned. I think that's undeniable. I mean, I don't really even date in London anymore. Do you know what I mean? I just, haven't really got the interest. I'm here for doing work. I've got friends here. I've got, I go to the gym, amazingly, and stuff like that.
It is true. Troy Francis lifts.
Yeah, I have lifted. I have lifted at least once in my life, and then put it down again. But so and a lot of Western Europe, not always great for the old dating. It does make a difference when you travel to these different places, and so I think that is a big attraction for it. But also, as I get on and become a bit more mature in my years, you do start to think, well, it is quite cool seeing these different places, and I'm not going to have forever, so maybe I should just go and go to Japan and see what it's like, or go to Cambodia or wherever it is. So yeah, but at the same time, I do think it's good to have stability and to have a base. I think it's really important, actually. I'm nuts otherwise.
Yeah, I'm looking at apartments in Zwolle. It's a college town, but a very with a very rich history as well. I've been to school there. I've had friends there. I played gigs there. It's just a place I really want to go to. I'm looking at apartments and things like that, because even though I've nothing to complain where I am now. Like the house hacking situation with a family member is absolutely great. It hasn't stood between me and my dating. It hasn't stood between me and like my business, whatever. But it is something where I'm kind of like, okay, we had a reason why we did it. The reason is no longer applicable. Time to move on. Like, what do we do now? And Zwolle is high on that list where it's like, that's where I really want to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the housing market right now is like absolutely amazing. It's like,
what, for rent or for buying or for?
Absolutely, buying would be the best. Buying would be the best because rents are just getting out of hand. But I saw an article yesterday even stating that only 3% of millennials are able to apply for like starter homes, where it's like, oh damn, that ain't good. That ain't good. But like I said, right now where I am, it's not standing between me and my dating opportunities or whatever. So
if you date, you can, you bring a girl back. It's all of that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No problems at all. So
that's the main thing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
But I mean, it may be that you don't have the pool of opportunities that you might have if you went to, say, just playing devil's advocate, if you went to, say, Colombia, for example, you'd certainly have a very different dating experience there just because of the nature of the women and the cultural differences and all that kind of stuff. So there's that side of things. But I take your point, though. If the place where you are is not preventing you, you can bring girls back, whatever. That's absolutely fine, obviously, from that point of view.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It might be a bit of a comfort thing where it's like the comfort is so good that you almost have that. It's not per se learned helplessness because I'm not miserable, but because it's so comfortable, it might be preventing me from expanding. If you know what I'm saying, because I have realized that where it's like, like I don't have it. It's not bad here, but it could be better. And you only live once. So
well, that's the thing. I mean, actually, this isn't the topic of the stream at all, but we might as well. It doesn't really. Who knows if we'll even get to the topic of the stream? But this is something that I oscillate between all the time. Comfort versus adventure or the search for more. And this is something actually I talk to Tusk about a lot. And he is more on the side of adventure, as you can imagine. He's much more, I just want to go out there and do different stuff and throw caution to the wind because that's what I believe being a man is about, and also life is short and all of that. And I totally get that. I completely get that. But I also get a lot of pleasure from comfort, or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if you want to call it comfort, but come back to London. It's not like I'm in a luxurious place or anything, but I've got friends here. It's very familiar. I actually enjoy being here. And that means something. Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of like, well, why forego that? Or at least why forego that all the time? Why not have a bit of that as well if it's something you like, right? I mean,
it reminds me of Ryan, what he said, where it's like, yeah, my life is pretty boring. I get to bed at 9 or 10 and I wake up at 6 because my dog doesn't know what Sunday is. But I'm very happy with it. Like I stare at the window in the morning. I have peace. I have quiet. I don't have to like herd pigs or whatever you used to do on the farm. Or scrub toilets in the Navy. It's like, I am very well satisfied with boring. And I mean, you and I both had a very non-recommendable childhood, to keep it light. Where it's like, maybe that's why we enjoy the peace so much, because we have experienced chaos and stress and non-peace. And to bring it back to the topic, that's why maybe we look for the excitement in something else.
Well, indeed. Absolutely. In the ladies. But just before we get into that, I saw you were on with Ali last night with Real Femme Sapien.
Yeah, she, what was it? So she did a show with Ryan. And I'm like, okay, Ryan doesn't do shows with anybody who's like not at least a little bit switched on. And I looked at her Twitter, and there were a couple of things on her Twitter where I was like, okay, this girl knows how to bait. Like, she knows how to piss people off. And I found that hilarious, started following her. And at a certain point, I responded to something, and she hit me up in the DMs, and she's like, yeah, I've seen you around, and people, like, have a good opinion on you. You seem normal. I'm like, what? Me?
It's a very rare reputation to have in this space, isn't it? Really.
Well, apparently, yes. What do you mean? She's like, you're not like losing your shit on my tweets. You're not spurging out. You're having a decent human response to things. I'm like, yeah. I was like, that's what people do. We interact with each other and things like that. And she invited me on, and we did the show yesterday, and I hope it was good. I had a blast. So
yes, no, absolutely. I haven't.
You met her, didn't you?
So, yeah, I've met her. I've done a video with. I can't remember if we've done a live stream yet, but I've certainly done a video with her. We did a video where with some questions about cold approach that she asked, which is up on my channel, and she's got a version of it as well. Yeah, she's cool. She's cool. She's a nice girl. She was in London actually because she came over to see Pearl, who does this my Pearly Things, whatever it's called. And this is Pearly Things. Sorry, Pearl. And yeah, so I met up with her then a couple of times as well. She's cool. She's a nice girl.
I've heard so much about Pearl, and
yes.
I've only seen like snippets of her, but it's mostly like the abstract numbers thing, and I'm kind of like, oh, okay, we have this again. So like, she's probably a very sweet and pleasant person to hang around with, but what I saw from the content, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of over this. But
yeah, I mean, Pearl's very nice as well. I mean, I've met her a few times. I've been on her show a few times, and she's a cool girl. I mean, obviously massively successful. She's got over 1 million, got 1 million subs now.
Oh damn!
You know, yeah. I think
we've been in the wrong game, Troy. We were born the wrong gender.
Or were we? I mean, how could you're assuming my gender there, Jack?
Yeah, I forgot. I haven't talked to you in a year. What changed? What happened?
Well, we'll go into it after the show.
Oh, okay.
We have spoken though, because we were on Rule Zero a little while back, weren't we? When I did that Rule Zero.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah, that was the 2 to 3 weeks ago.
A couple of weeks back. So anyway, but well, I suppose the other question before we get into the real topic is: do you sun your balls or do you ice your balls?
I saw that.
Which is the optimal for high testosterone?
Oh my god, I saw that. It's like these guys always contradict each other. It's like you need the ice baths for recovery, but you need to tan your asshole as well for like. It's like
It was quite funny. I mean, look, that guy actually. I think he's got some good content actually, and I don't have anything. I mean, it was just quite funny. I mean, I'm sure he would have a reasonable explanation if he came on here, like, oh yeah, well, you want to sun it sometimes, and then do the ice, like whatever. But it was just quite funny. It was just quite funny seeing those things like one after the other. It's like, well, hang on a minute, what do I do? Like, I'm confused. Do I sun my nutsack or do I ice it? Or both at the same time. I suppose you could be out. You could be sunning your nutsack, and then you could put like an ice lolly on it during the height of the summer.
I mean, you could wear an ice cock ring while sunning it.
Yeah, back to the Berlin days. Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, there's a lot of like sort of bro science out there on Twitter, isn't there? There's a lot of this sort of weird, slightly odd, esoteric stuff about how to be a man, which is all sort of a bit weird, I think.
Oh man, I've been I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but the last couple of days I've been posting have a look, and I've been just posting the most extreme guys I can find. Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance, Axl Rose back in the 80s, what's his name? Russell Brand.
Yes.
Haven't found a good photo of Johnny Depp yet to use that with. David Bowie, guys like that. It's like, do those guys look like they like tan their asshole or whatever? Okay, maybe Russell Brand. He kind of went off the deep end there, but like, yeah, he kind of did. But he still shagged Katy Perry. I mean,
Russell Brand was notoriously a ladies' man back in the earlier 2000s. I mean, he actually won the Sun newspaper's Shagger of the Year competition 3 times in a row. So what point are you making, though, that these guys who are not like the classic 2D alpha, they still...
Yeah, kind of exactly that, where it's like, do these guys look like they care about sunning their asshole or whatever? It's like, no, they live in the moment. They go for what they want. They express themselves. I mean, that changed with me, too, since you and I met. I got a lot more tattoos. That, too.
Nice,
It's like
nice.
I've been leaning more into that side of myself where it's like, no, it's good to have that side, the more artistic, interested in the arts, sort of say, and
Well,
why not express that more?
Well, yeah, I mean, I always think it's a mistake to imagine that the only person on the planet who's getting laid is Jason Statham or people that look like Jason Statham. I mean, or Vin Diesel. I mean, it's just not the case. I mean, yes, of course, there's a market for guys like that, but there's also a very big market for emo guys as well. And it's like or K-pop guys, right? And it's like you've got to find a niche that works for you. But the one that everyone's going nuts about at the moment is Harry Styles, isn't it? Everyone goes mental about Harry Styles wearing a dress or something. And I mean, I'm just like, well, I just don't really care. It's like, whatever. Yeah. I mean, like, it literally obviously has no effects on my life whatsoever. But whoever the Twitter bro is who's criticizing Harry Styles has, let's say, made love to 1,000 times as many women as that bloke will ever do. So, who's winning in the end, right?
Exactly. I mean, that guy gets more ass than a toilet seat. I am doubting his choice about Olivia Wilde, who back in the day was very good looking when she played in House. Remember that? I mean, Olivia Wilde, man, she looked great. And now she kind of went off the deep end as well. And apparently now she had a relationship with Harry Styles. And I'm kind of like, Harry, bro, come on. I mean, come on, 10 years too late. Yeah. And then you have Leo, of course, who just, where does he pick them up? Like, does he have his special grocery store or something? Like, oh, I want a new 19-year-old model, and just opens the fridge and picks her out. It's like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. Has that been confirmed yet? Or because I think Leo's people backtracked on it, didn't they? And said, oh no, they were just photographed together at a party. I don't know whether it's confirmed that, yeah. Because I mean, there was another one. He was meant to be dating this Ukrainian girl in London for a while. After he split up with the last one officially, then there was this Ukrainian girl who was like 24, and he was supposed to be with her, and then that disappeared. And then, I mean, whatever, man. I mean, I'm sure
he's living life. He's absolutely living life. I mean, Ali and I talked about that yesterday about like, is marriage still an option and things like that. I'm like, well, of course it's an option if you want it. But if you don't,
what did she say? No, get off my stream. You must get married.
She said I belong to the streets.
You belong to the streets.
Something like that. No. She said that I have been on the streets. I'm like, well, yes, that'd be true.
Time to get off them. Time to do the right thing.
I'm like, the streets are fun. The streets are fun. They are frustrating, but they are fun. I mean, what else do you want? It's like girls, either they flake on you or they come through. And when they come through, it's absolutely amazing. And then you get the thrill of, is there going to be a second date? Is there going to be a third date? And then you get the frustration again about, damn it, we have to start all over again. And then what else is there to do? Like
the highs and the lows of the player lifestyle, man.
Yeah, I mean, be like Matt Walsh and shit on Ryan because he called you out on posting your kids. I mean, that seems kind of boring. I was like,
Matt Walsh is just a very boring man, isn't he, really? I mean, he's just a boring bearded buffoon, as a lot of these people are, unfortunately. I mean, the problem with conservatism is that although people will claim conservatism is the new punk rock and it's the new rebellion, man, to be conservative, but in reality, a lot of those dudes are just really, really very, very dull. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying become a blue hair liberal, but I'm just saying, come on. Let's
there is an in-between. There is a very...
I mean, if you are on social media vehemently arguing for doing something that people have done for thousands of years, or for hundreds of years, certainly, getting shacked up and, having a family, it's a bit like, well, okay, fine. If that's what you want to do, no, absolutely fine. No problems with that. But is that something really to get on your soapbox about? Something that the common man, the masses, the unwashed masses have done for centuries?
Yeah, I know. And that's the same thing I told Ali, where it's like, hey, I might be dating and I might really enjoy that, but I'm not going to sit here and say, you must act like me. That's not how this works. It's like, no,
it's not for you. It's not how it works for you. And I hope it's not how it works for me, but it is how it works for some people. Particularly those, the trads.
Yeah, exactly. And at a certain point, she asked me, like, do you believe in relationships? I'm like, absolutely. I believe 100% of relationships. I just don't believe in them. You have a
lasting more than 22 minutes. A 22-minute relationship is absolutely fine.
Oh God, no! But if you have the relationship for the sole purpose of having a relationship instead of actually wanting to be with that person.
Well, it is kind of crazy, isn't it? How you've got these social media influence or people on social media who and their main flex is the fact that they're in a relationship or that they've maybe got a couple of kids. I mean, and Pat Stedman is another example of that. You know, I mean, although to be fair, he doesn't post the. I don't think he posts the family pictures as much, but it's still that kind of thing, isn't it? It's kind of it's the kind of like, hey, bro, did you see a tweet the other day? Maybe you posted it. Somebody posted it, and it was a picture. It was a meme in two halves, and the top half was like a Dan Bilzerian surrounded by women, and underneath there was a picture of the guy with his family.
Oh,
like,
I saw that.
Yeah. It's like, this is nothing to be jealous of. This is, and it's the bloke underneath with his wife and his kids, and it's a bit like, well, I mean, for some maybe. I mean, not for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same flex. It's the same validation-seeking behavior. It's like, look at me, I'm living.
It was Ryan that posted it, actually, probably.
Yeah, Ryan responded to it, indeed. It's like it's the same thing, but just with different things. They're both flexing, and they both need validation online. Where it's like, and this is the thing I don't get about supercars. Where it's like, if you have a supercar and you're happy with it, do you need the likes to like prove to yourself that it is a good thing? It's like, I mean, I like it.
I think you probably do, to be fair. And I think the fact is we are social animals and we get these dopamine hits from different things. And I mean, there's the old thing about, there was a joke, wasn't there, about if I was on a desert island and you know, I pulled, there was one woman on the desert island and it was, I don't know, who's a top model at the moment or top hot woman at the moment?
Anya, oh no, that's more of an actress. It
was Anya Taylor-Joy. And then it was like, would that be perfect? Well, no, because there wouldn't be anyone to flex to about the fact. You know, there's that. I've mangled the joke, but there's that concept, and I think we can't. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm just saying it is part of it, isn't it? Flexing, unfortunately, is a human instinct because we get a dopamine hit from it. So if you've got a Bugatti or you've got a Lambo or 15 Lambos or whatever, and you post about it, and then other guys are jealous, you do get you are getting a dopamine hit from that. That is part of what is happening here. So it is part of the pleasure of owning those cars, isn't it? I'm not saying that's something to be admired. I mean, actually, if we're all about emotional control here, and you know, the measure of a man is how emotionally controlled he can be and how he can go without that kind of stuff, then actually
it's not per se like you have to be stoic and you have to express joy, but it's more of the whole concept of the dangers of social media, where it's like you have to post everything and everybody needs to see everything I do, kind of thing. But again, a personal preference thing, where it's like, yeah, I don't live that much on social media for that. I mean, Twitter, the last couple of days, I've been using to shit on people. I've chosen absolute violence. It's like, oh my God, when people say something stupid, I'm just rail them over the coals. Like when I post, how would you open? And guys go, I would never open her. It's like, we got another one. Good.
Yeah. I mean, I step back from Twitter quite significantly. And I think I'm sort of going to engage it again a bit more, but I as much as I can, I want to sort of try and avoid the blood sports on there because it's just it's fun. And again, this is all about dopamine hits, isn't it? Like it's fun to clown somebody on Twitter, or it can be fun sometimes. You know, you get a hater who comes at you or something, and then you have an argument with them, and you can feel good about like landing some blows. But in the end, the whole thing is a little bit sort of like where's the value in it to anybody, really? Do you know what I mean? I'm not criticizing you or anything. I'm just saying I've always tried to avoid arguing. For years, I've tried to avoid arguing too much with people on social media that I don't know. Like maybe one or two back and forth and then just cut it, you know? Because I've gone down that path before where I've just got into long arguments with randoms on social media about stuff. And it's like, what the fuck, you know? Really, has that helped my life? So I don't know. Like, I'm just, for me personally, because I can get caught in the rabbit hole with these things. So I'm trying to sort of, I want to use Twitter, but try not to sort of get too enmeshed in the adversarial nature of it, if that makes sense.
I know what you mean, and it was something Wine More Please said that got me going using Twitter as I'm using it now. He's like, we're talking about you, not at you. because he got into a scarfuffle as well, and he retweeted the guy, and he made him look like an absolute fool. And the guy responded to why more plays, and why more plays is like, mate, I'm not talking to you, so Stvu, I'm talking about you as an example. And he just went off. It's like, and that's a whole different way of like arguing, because you're not per se arguing, you're making more of a display of stupidity, and then the person can choose to engage or not, and you can do too.
Well, I mean, Ryan does this sort of thing, doesn't he, quite well, by getting people to engaging with people and people coming at him in various ways, and then him using that as an example, basically to sell his book about Frame, because these people, none of these people obviously have Frame on Twitter, so he's using, so it does kind of work in that way, and I totally get it. And actually, to be honest, I mean, the more adversarial you are, the more engagement you're going to get, probably the bigger following you get, and all the rest of it. I'm just saying, for me, I found myself almost feeling a little bit ill using social media too much. You know what I mean? Because I can see the sort of addictive cycle it's taking me into. And I'm like, fuck, I don't know if I want these sort of, I don't know if I want to wake up first thing in the morning and switch on my phone and look at like my notifications and shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just puts me in a bad headspace.
No, I know exactly what you mean. And again, apologies for this, but a while back, there was some guy who was shitting on you, and I sent you that. It's kind of like, if I send it in a, with the purpose of, look at this idiot not living a great life.
Oh yeah, but, no, and yeah, completely. And I mean, maybe I overreacted a little bit.
No, I didn't think you did. I completely understand where it's like, you are out there living your best life, and then you get confronted with like some loser who has an opinion online where it's like, what value does it truly add? You're absolutely right about that.
Well, it's a very interesting thing. And obviously we're content creators, so we're putting our head above the parapet. So more than most, we're going to get, I mean, I'm sure you've had it, we're going to get trolls, we're going to get people criticizing us and everything else, and fine, whatever. My strategy with that generally has been to try not to engage with it as much as possible. And obviously, people send things, I mean, or you see something or whatever. It's the old classic thing, isn't it? Don't Google yourself. I mean, I try not to engage as much as possible, because firstly, I think from a mental health perspective, I don't think it really helps you. I think it just puts you in a bad state. And then I get angry about the thing, and I want to retaliate against the thing, and I want to, and it pulls me into this sort of fight that really isn't doing me any favors in the end. Because even if I completely clown whoever this random anon is who slagged me off, and I feel good for a bit because I'm like, yeah, and I've showed that idiot, where does that really get me in the big scheme of things? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't really get me anywhere. And a lot of this criticism that gets leveled at me or Rollo Tomasi or Fresh and Fit or anybody in the whole space, really, most of it is completely irrelevant, to be honest, because a lot of this stuff, people spend their whole lives setting up fake accounts and trying to clown people and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't really make any fucking difference, I saw some stuff about Fresh and Fit the other day. People are, posting sort of old pictures from, their private Facebook and stuff like that. Nobody cares. They've still got over 1 million subs. They're still raking the cash in.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't know Myron and Walter personally, and I think that they are probably great men to hang around with. But Fresh and Fit just isn't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So when I say something where it's like, yeah, sorry, guys, I don't think that's helpful, it's like more of the brand than the people, because I don't know them. I've never met them. I've engaged once with Myron, a very pleasant conversation. I gave him kudos for he had a quote unquote debate, as much as you can debate black pillars, and he was just very calm through that entire engagement. And I hit him up. I'm like, man, you can be proud of that, where you just like let them do their thing and stay calm.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a difference between being critical of somebody or critical of somebody's, whatever they're doing, or just saying I'm not particularly into that, whatever that may be, versus being a troll. I mean, obviously you're not a troll. I mean, the different, I can say, I don't know, whatever. I don't like this particular show by this particular content creator. Okay, fine. But that's different to setting up fake accounts and sending weird messages and all that kind of shit,
they feel obligated to engage, where it's like, if you don't like something, then don't watch it. It really is that simple. But they feel this urge to, like, what's his name, Moose or something, every time, like with Rule Zero, you see him in the chat, like messing with Rolo. It's like, this is not healthy.
It's not healthy it's not healthy for him. I mean, often when I see criticism aimed at me. I mean, sometimes, you see somebody's written a comment, or somebody's written like a long comment, if ever I see that, my first thoughts before even reading it or thinking about it as it pertains to me, my first thought is what the fuck is this guy doing? Do you know what I mean? Because it's sort of like, I mean, why are you wasting that amount of time, writing a chunk of paragraph or making a video? I mean, even worse, about someone like, I mean, it boggles the mind, really, that people have the time or the inclination to do this. Quite aside from whatever the criticism is of me and whether it's valid or not, it's like, Jesus Christ. I mean, you poor bloke.
Well, absolutely. It's like, God, why would you do this? I had one comment I did a narration with Torsha of Ian Ironwood's Praxeology of the Dominant Male. And there was one guy, and I saw it on her channel as well, like this big of a comment. Yeah. This big of a comment. And the only thing it was doing was arguing, and we didn't know the meaning of praxology, and we should be educated, and we should know better, and blah, blah, blah. And I read the first phrase, and I already saw that he was like, we don't know the meaning of praxology. Skimmed through it a bit, stopped reading, just replied, man, I don't know what went wrong. I hope you're doing well. Go with God. It's like, I'm not reading this.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I suppose we can loosely relate this back to the topic, which is slowly getting lost in the ether of this stream, of not putting your dick in crazy, because in a way, these people, I'm not saying they're all mentally, medically mentally ill, but a lot of these people have issues going on in their life, quite clearly. And really engaging with them is not going to do you any favors. And it's the same with women in dating. And it's I mean, let's face it, it's also probably the same in any kind of relationship, but obviously with, dating a big topic of ours. So as far as women in dating is concerned, you when you identify these women who are a bit nuts, it kind of is better to steer clear, isn't it, in the end? Which, no, it doesn't sound like a revolutionary statement, but believe me, having been down the road many, many times in the past of, because somebody's pretty or somebody's attractive or whatever, getting into something with them, it's caused me a lot of problems in the past. And I'm glad that I feel like I've started to move out of that phase of my life now.
Mm-hmm. I get what you mean. I always make the argument of lean into it and have a little bit of fun with it. However, that is not for the unexperienced, because I have a sense that don't stick your dick in crazy came mostly from guys who got burned once because there was either no boundary enforcement, there was scarcity, there was what else do we got? Just a whole blue pill mindset of, oh, she is the one, blah, 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 even though she is abusive and everything, and not wanting to leave because of that. But let's say your intentions is nothing more than just short-term dating or whatever. Yeah. And you kind of have your stuff in order. You know you don't have the scarcity mindset. You see it for what it is, and you have no long-term intention with her. Then I'm kind of like, you can have a lot of fun with this. Because as long as you're clear about things, like, look, if you're going to like give the impression towards the girl, this is a long-term thing and whatever, then you're setting yourself up for failure. But if you just give indeed that impression of like, this is nothing more than short-term and whatever, and you realize that, that you can live with that, you can handle like that, why not do it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so just John Watts has written here, your time and attention is your dick. Twitter in the comment section is the crazy shit, which is quite a nice way of summing it up. I agree with that.
He is one of my greatest trolls. He is of value, absolutely, but he has a nice way of phrasing things.
Well, I think in the case of that comment, I think that actually does kind of sum it up. because yes, I mean the engaging with these people on social media really is like putting your dick into crazy in a funny way. But the reason, or one of the reasons this topic came about, was because I was telling you before that I had met somebody quite fairly recently, and she was very, very attractive. You know, very, very, very pretty girl. For on my scale, and look, guys do have a different scale, okay, here, but on my scale, very, very pretty, slim, pretty, petite, stylish. You know, nice body, all the rest of it, and also fun to be around as well. And we had quite a lot of things in common in terms of some of the stuff, you know, music that we liked, the kind of cultural stuff that we were into, blah blah blah. So and you know, she kind of got each other's sense of humor. There was a good vibe there. So a lot of boxes were being ticked, but she was completely nuts. There were more red flags than, I mean, Rich Cooper, as I said, would be spinning in his sauna if he could see the number of red flags that this girl had, including some tattoos. Actually, not many tattoos, but some and tattoos on the hands and things, like little tattoos. But no, she was just. I could tell that she had certain issues going on. Let's say probably with I say addiction. I mean, probably some addiction type stuff. Probably some things around codependency. Just sort of hyper energetic ADHD type stuff. There was a lot of stuff going on there. I could see it. Now, very pleasant girl, very cool girl, but there was definitely this kind of stuff. There was a sort of chaoticness to her nature, and I met her and I thought, God, this girl is like, on one hand, she's like my dream girl, but on the other hand, my instinct was telling me if I allow this thing if I go too far down this road, this is not going to end very well. I don't know how, but there was something about the situation. I was just like, I'm not sure about this. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. Like what you just mentioned, like with addiction and things like that. That is where I draw the line. Like I love the chaotic behavior, like the almost like way too energetic, things like that, easily distracted kind of things. And there's a hint of madness there. That's something I enjoy. But it's like when addiction and things like that come into play, I'm like, okay, I'm out. It's like,
well,
nope, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, when you say when I say addiction, people probably think of like somebody shooting up heroin in the streets or something. I mean, it wasn't like that. And I'm somebody who's suffered from addiction myself, and you know, I don't drink anymore. I mean, I had problems with that. I think some people have this sort of addictive tendency. It doesn't necessarily mean you end up as a smack addict living in the streets in San Francisco, but it does bring. I mean, you can get there if it's not curtailed. But it doesn't necessarily mean that. People have a problem with cocaine, for example, you know, and they're quite socially, you know, they're socially very sort of seemingly very normal, but you know, they're banging, they're shooting, you know, snorting cocaine the whole time in the toilets, and they're mildly addicted to it, and the problem with it is that it brings with it a lot of problematic behaviors, you know, and because of my experience and because I know a lot of people who've had these issues and then come out the other side, I think I'm quite attuned to it in other people. So you can have somebody who's socially on the surface, they look perfectly normal, but you can tell that they've got that side to them. And then you think, well, how's that going to conflict with me, with my own nature, which is also can be problematic. You think, Jesus, this is going to, and the funny thing is as well, that if you're somewhat that way inclined, you tend to attract people who've got a little bit of that as well. And that's something I've noticed in my personal life many times in the past.
Yeah, no, I have it too. Where it's like certain behaviors or certain past tendencies tend to come back as a reflection in other people. But like, especially what you mentioned, like with the past that you have, let's say, even if you were only to date this girl, who says this girl wouldn't use something on a date which might end up being like a trigger for you? That is like not a situation you want to be in.
No, absolutely. And that has sort of that's sort of come close to happening in the past, because I haven't drunk or done any drugs for like 2 decades. I mean, it's a long time,
Mm-hmm.
now, but you're never totally out of the woods. And I think if there was one situation in which I would probably be, if I was going to relapse, let's say, it would probably be if I'm with some really pretty, very charismatic girl who's trying to, get me to do it. I mean, it happened to me actually a while back. I was in Moscow before the what's happening now, and I had this Ukrainian girl. She was back in my hotel room, and she was trying to make me drink shots, because this happens sometimes. Girls are like, "Oh, you're not drinking," blah blah blah.
Yeah.
She was literally trying to force shots on me in the hotel. And if there's one situation where you might be think, "Oh, sod it," it would be that, probably. You know what I'm saying? Because you've got the added thing of the sexual side of things on top as well. So yeah, from that point of view, you've got to be, of course, you've got to be careful.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And that's it's not per se social pressure, but it's like yeah, mostly that, but like she hasn't been where you have been.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And to her, it's just like, oh, it's just shots. Yeah, for you, maybe. But like for me, there's an entire history of X amount of years of being not able to live without this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So that is definitely, that's one thing. That's definitely a risk. But even without that, even if you put that to one side and say, well, okay, fine, whatever. Because with this last girl, that I met, I was very upfront about it, actually, because I've also been on dates and things, and I'm not upfront about the fact that, say, alcohol is a no-no for me, and then that can then lead to problems. With this particular girl, I was very upfront. I was just like, listen, I don't do it anymore. This is why, blah, blah, blah. Take it or leave it. And she was fine with it. She didn't have a problem with it. But even if you draw that boundary, there's just something about the personality type of there's a certain craziness that goes with that kind of person. And if you're bringing that energy, sounding like Pat Stedman now, but if you're bringing that energy into your life, that it can just cause you problems down the line, because you're bringing somebody into your life who's very chaotic and very all over the place. And this girl had to go to the hospital a couple of times when we were seeing each other. Now, for something unrelated and not to do with drugs or anything like that. But even then, there was a sense of like, there's just this kind of like chaos surrounding this woman, and I'm being drawn into it. And really, as with the best will in the world, this is kind of nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's an issue with dating in general for guys. You're dating these girls, and if they're sort of a little bit like that, you can bring their chaos into your life and make it part of your problem.
At a certain point, you're going to feel responsible for them, which you aren't, but like emotions get involved anyway. And she's probably not going to listen to you because you ain't my dad. And then she does something incredibly stupid, and here we go.
Yeah, well, and that's an interesting thing as well, actually. The sort of the rescuer, the rescuing impulse that guys had. And I have it. I don't have it. Do I have it? Probably a bit. I mean, there was another woman who I was involved with last year, and then she had some personal issues in her life. She's in a bit of a bad situation, and I was kind of helped her out a little bit. And there is that sort of temptation as well. But again, what I'm conscious of is that these are, I mean, I've got enough problems of my own. I mean, these are other people's problems that I'm sort of, and because of our relationship to women, because we have that sort of nurturing, that kind of desire to protect and all the rest of it, it can be very tempting to go down the route of getting sucked into somebody else's problems when really it's got nothing to do with you.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I meant with, when you have your shit together, you can actually date them. And one of those things is being able to be emotionally detached, no matter how cold that really sounds.
Yeah.
Because she is not your responsibility.
Yeah.
If you're dating, she is not your responsibility. She could have 10 guys on her phone she's texting with.
True.
As long as you're not committed, there is no responsibility. She can do whatever she wants. The only thing you need to do is like set the standard for what she does when she's with you. I've dated girls who like to smoke weed. I don't like weed. I just don't. I don't know what it is. I think it's for losers. I'm going to piss off a lot of people with that. I know. Most people I met who smoke weed, I'm sorry. You're just not my people. And I told them, it's like, hey, I'd love to hang out with you, but if you're stoned or whatever, I'm not coming. And you're not coming here either.
Yeah.
Message received. They were always like sober when they showed up or when I came to them.
Weed smells horrible as well.
I know. But it's like, if they were not with me or whatever, I don't know what they did. None of my business. None of my business.
I was in LA recently. I was in LA recently, and because it's legalized now in California, you know, you're wandering around, you're just smelling like clouds of weed on the corner everywhere. It's just
it's the same thing in Amsterdam. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I don't live near there.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps saying, like, how's Amsterdam? I'm like, the Netherlands is more than Amsterdam, people. Like, Amsterdam.
That's all we've heard of. That's all we've heard of. It's like, oh, Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I've said that to you in the past, haven't I?
I know. But what was I about to say? A while back, I don't know if I had told you this, where it's like I was dating, and for some odd reason I couldn't get past the first date, even though like the first date was all fine and dandy and like all the adult things. But I kind of was that guy where it's like, no, I'm just gonna show up once, get mine, and then I'm never gonna text him again or whatever. So I had this girl, and we had like 2 or 3 dates.
Yeah.
And this was such a shame, because at a certain point we were texting back and forth, and one morning the texts were like distant, and I'm like, wait a minute, something happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so how you doing? She's like, yeah, not good. I'm like, oh dear, here we go. Like, what happened? He's like, I drove into a roundabout. I'm like, you did what? He's like, yeah, the car is still stuck in there. I'm like, what the hell did you do? Well, I drank a little bit too much, and I went behind the wheel, and I kind of lost my driver's license. I'm like, I mean, immediately at that point, I don't care where she was. Apparently, she was with a friend. Make of that what you will. But I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to see you again. It's like, this is such a turn off. It's like, there could have been, like, you are happy be happy you hit the goddamn roundabout and not somebody else. But no, this done. I was just completely turned off by that. Like, even though like you had 3 dates and whatever, but nope. Like, now, if I were too much invested and scarcity mindset, whatever, oh, it's the only girl I'm dating, then I might have been in a lot of trouble.
So why was it specifically that you were put off? Were you just like, wait a minute, this is too crazy for me. I just can't, because she hadn't. I mean, obviously it was bad what happened, but she hadn't done anything. It didn't affect you personally, did it? But
no.
Were you just like, this is just too,
This is just too irresponsible for me, where you just cannot think of the repercussions that behavior like that entails. Now, if you use drugs and whatever and you're with somebody, sure. But if you like get behind the wheel, incapacitated, I'm kind of like, yeah, no, that ain't happening.
But was it because, did you think, okay, well, if she can do this, then what might she do? And that could have something that could then affect you. Was it that sort of thinking?
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, if I already have to teach her that, if it comes to it, how much more do I need to teach her? It's like, no. Plus the fact, apparently, like, what was it? Oh, my parents used to do it all the time. It's like, no, there we go. Toxic parents, whatever. It's like, no, I'm not doing this. I am not dealing with this. Because who knows what happens if we set a date and she drives to my place and she doesn't care about those things. It's like, yeah, just no. Not gonna happen.
No, it's a very good example, and again, I mean, I think in the past I was so, and this is partly down to scarcity and partly down to lack of experience and of seeing the red flags, and partly down to well, kind of infatuation. You know, if you meet a girl and she's very, very beautiful and you're just like completely beguiled by her, just ignoring any red flags or putting them to one side because it's less important than getting with her. I got myself into various situations with women who were really quite unsuitable. And the way you've got to look at it is, if this was a guy and you were friends with this person, would you really be cool with this behavior? You know, and it's like, if it's only basically because you're sexually into this girl and you want to sleep with her and you don't want her going off and leaving you for somebody else, if that's the only reason that you're putting up with a certain type of behavior, then you've got to look very carefully at that, haven't you? And think, well, hang on a minute, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, the relationship thing was like immediately out the window.
Yes.
Kind of thing, where it's like, no, this is not happening. Just no. And I think that a lot of guys, because of that scarcity, and like you just said, like, if your best friend would do this, would you still want to hang around with them? The problem is, a lot of guys, first of all, won't fuck their best friend, but they would fuck the crazy. And then they kind of excuse it because, well, she does give good head. Yeah, well, you can find another girl who can do that. Yeah, but it's hard. It's like, well, your life's going to be a lot harder than the hardship of finding a different girl if you continue with this.
Well, I mean, another thing, because the other thing that we were talking about in relation to this was obviously the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, because you posted that picture of Amber Heard, who, was very cute and still is, although she didn't look that great in court, but she is obviously still beautiful woman. You posted that and you were saying, oh, how would you open and so on, and that led to our conversation about this. But I would have thought at the beginning, I mean, from what I don't know a huge amount about the very beginnings of that relationship, but I would imagine that she presented as being fairly together, and the craziness probably came out slowly as it went on. So what about that? Because sometimes, like, how can guys tell up front? I think I'm better at it now than I was, but I guess it's kind of hard because somebody's not necessarily. People tend to be on their best behavior in the early stages, don't they?
Well, exactly, and this is kind of where I really disagree with the MGTOWs and the Black Pillars, where it's like, if it happened to Johnny Depp, it can happen to us all. First of all, no, yes, it can. However, is Johnny Depp as well informed as we are? Because if you see Depp in court, he still goes through a lot of mental shit. He hasn't processed everything, and you can see that.
I mean, I think probably somebody like Johnny Depp. I mean, Leo, I don't know actually, but a lot of these guys who are celebrities and they were good looking and they've been desired and by thousands of women, since they were young, they haven't really probably had to learn a lot of this stuff. So arguably, you could say somebody who's not a celebrity, you could say maybe Johnny Depp's in one of the worst positions as far as seeing those red flags is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you remember that video that was like leaked, wasn't leaked, of him and Amber and how he kind of lost his shit.
Which one was that?
Where the one in the kitchen where he started throwing with glasses and things like that. I mean, I like Depp. I really do. But the guy didn't have like a real good frame or anything. She could just walk all over him. And I think that they kind of rushed into everything. Like, you and I know, and all the guys in this space know that, like, a relationship is the woman's job. Your job is just to have fun and continue dating for as long as you wish to do it. As long as she doesn't give you a reason to kick her to the curb, why kick her to the curb?
Yeah.
And then from there on out, you continue. But I think, like I said, I don't know them personally. This is just a quarterback. What was it? Armchair quarterback. That's the one. Armchair quarterbacking this one, where it's like, I think they just rushed into that relationship. Johnny was blind because she was absolutely beautiful, and he didn't enforce any boundaries or whatever, because no matter what she did, he wanted her anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that is the problem. That's what I'm trying to relate to just an ordinary guy. He'll allow anything to pass because he just wants her anyway.
Yep. And that's why I don't agree with the whole, well, if it happens to Depp, it can happen to us. Well, it can, but fortunately for you, you're watching Troy and I here, and you can learn something from us. So if Amber Heard is walking down the street, you know what to do.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's sounding like a black pill argument. Oh, if it can happen to Johnny Depp, but it's not really black pill, is it? I mean, I think clearly Depp has issues himself, and like you said, probably just didn't enforce the necessary boundaries early on, and he probably, I mean, yeah, he's a world famous movie star, but probably was just sort of suckered in by her beauty and whatever else, and kind of allowed a lot of stuff to slide in the early stages of that relationship, I would have thought. And that's what we're counselling against here, really, isn't it? It's a bit like, okay, so what are the signs early on? And, it's often... I mean, I remember my first real girlfriend, for example. I mean, she ended up... that relationship ended up in disaster. I mean, she was very pretty, certainly for me at the time, because I'd gone from being almost like having no dating success at all in school and college and stuff, and then suddenly started to become a little bit more of a cocky, funny kind of an arsehole type guy because I was drinking a lot and partying, and I met this girl, and I thought absolutely stunning, and she really liked me, she was all over me, and we had slept together, and then we ended up sort of in a relationship. We ended up not quite living together, but almost living together very quickly. There was a lot of love bombing going on, actually, in hindsight, looking at it from her side. To me, it was like, oh, I want you to move in with me. And I actually kept hold of the place where I actually lived. Because even me, at that young age, completely infatuated with this woman, even I was a bit like, well, hang on a minute, this is a little bit. And then she ended up cheating on me and just going nuts and everything at the end. And it was all very messy. Now, it can be tempting for the guy to think, oh, but she was so sweet and lovely at the beginning. And then she became this. How did that happen? And that's probably sort of what I thought at the time. But if I'm honest, and looking back at it now, there were red flags at the beginning. I just chose to ignore them. I just chose not to disregard them because she was very pretty, she was very beautiful, and I had a lot of scarcity, and it just seemed, I was like, well, who cares? I'm all in,
Mm-hmm. No, I know what you mean. Like, we're blindsided by a lot of certain behaviors. And then I start to wonder, yeah, but what could those behaviors be? Love bombing is one, when she's into you just a bit too fast. But I don't know if that's okay. Question for you,
Jack. We always.
I mean, question for you, because you know this. We've all been there when we've seen a woman where it's like, look, I can just throw myself at her right now. Like, I want that. Do you think women cannot experience the same?
Oh no, yeah, no. I think they can, and I think there's a fine line between. I mean, it's sort of like you can pathologize anything, can't you? It's like, oh, she was love bombing. That's a form of narcissistic control. It's like, well, maybe she just really liked you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. So it's a bit hard. I truly think you cannot tell until like a couple of dates in what the real problem is. But like I said, a lot of guys want to rush in the relationship. They go, oh my God, we have 3 dates and it's been 4 days since we met. It's like, hold off a bit. Like, people can like wear a mask of who they really are for a very long time. But like with the love bombing, like I said, if you, like you mentioned, like the living together and things like that, if you set for yourself a certain boundary where it's like, hey, I'd love to live together, but not until I have at least dated you for what's reasonable, I don't know, like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yes, exactly. And I would never do that now. But at the time, and one of the red flags, actually, well, there was a couple of red flags. I'll tell you them now, that came up very early on. She told me she was into doing aerobics at the gym, or she'd do like classes at the gym, and she told me she used to take a bit of speed, bit of amphetamine in order to work harder in the class. So there was that. I was a bit like, oh, that's unusual, but fair enough.
Interesting.
And there was another thing. She came to because we met in this club, and she used to come to the club with this girl, friend of hers, another attractive girl, and she was like, oh yeah, she's amazing. This girl, she's my best friend. She's just so incredible. She's just a great, you know. And I was like, oh, cool, interesting. So how long have you known her for? And she said, oh, about a month. And I was like, okay, well that's odd because you're extolling the virtues. Like you know, you've only known this girl a month, and you're saying she's like the best thing ever. She's, you know, it seemed a bit odd. There's a couple of things that I just sort of disregarded them at the time because I was like, yeah, whatever, fair enough. But then looking back on it, then you think, well, clearly, I mean, that's unusual, right? To be taking speed to go to an exercise class, and clearly she was somebody who had quite superficial relationships. If she regarded somebody that she'd known for 4 weeks as being like, you know, the greatest friend ever.
Mm.
And I mean, would I pick up on that stuff? I think, yeah, I would now. But at the time, I was just blinded by the opportunity to have sex with somebody and whatever, and that was enough.
Yeah, and I mean, and then now I have to kind of tread lightly, because would you say that those things now would stop you from having sex with her?
Well, I think, like we've said, there's a difference. There's a difference between having sex and getting into a relationship with somebody, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, one thing I would say is that as I've gone on, I have got more and more guarded with people that I allow into my personal space at all, including having sex. You know, I have got to the point where even with that, you know, I'm not really at that point in my life where it's just like, oh well, you know, let's just have sex and then worry about it afterwards. Like even with that, I am more guarded than I used to be. But you know, there's a difference between seeing somebody casually, maybe having sex a couple of times, versus getting into something serious with them. And I would certainly, with a woman like that, I would certainly not want it to progress into anything like a relationship. Whether we'd hook up the odd time, that's a different thing, I think. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, because that's kind of the direction I'm going when I shitpost on Twitter, where it's like, guys, you don't have to marry him. You don't have to commit to him, but don't let... Because there was, a while back, there was a photo, a very cute looking girl, had one tiny tattoo here. A tiny tattoo. And guys in the comments were, oh my God, she's inked and she belongs to the streets. It's like, dude, get your head out of your ass. Like, you don't know who she is. You've never met. You probably never meet her. We're just having a bit of fun, like locker room talk. And here you stand bragging about your virtues.
Yeah.
And like with guys going out, and let's say a girl with a tattoo is into them, you are not obligated to commit to them. But
yeah,
you still can have fun with it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
wear a rubber. Like that's the one thing I would advise.
Yeah. Well, Daniel says, got a chick coming with a few tattoos from another state to see me this weekend. So, well, I mean, I think the tattoo thing, personally, I think the tattoo thing gets a little bit sort of overstated, because I'm not sure even how valid it is anymore, because tattoos are very common now. You know, they're very common, like fashion thing. A lot of women have tattoos. Does it mean they're all for the streets? Some would argue yes, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much of a red flag tattoos on their own are these days, really.
I mean, tattoos.
I personally quite like girls with tattoos anyway. I think it can look quite sexy, depending on the type of tattoos and where they are and stuff like that. But
I mean, tattoos are the modern landing strip, is how I see it.
Yeah.
Remember that when like only strippers have a landing strip, or only sluts and whores have a completely shaved hoo-ha. Like, women of virtue don't shave down there. And now it's like, oh, women of virtue don't have tattoos. It's all the same thing.
Well, you're right, though, because the wider point, which is that those guys on Twitter who are like, oh, I wouldn't approach that. How would I open? I wouldn't open at all. She's got a butterfly tattoo on her ankle. You know, I mean, those guys are clearly coping.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it's clearly because they're disqualifying her before they even give it a chance to let themselves off the hook of, even in this completely fabricated, non-real situation of saying how you'd open on Twitter. You don't even have to actually open. They still don't want to take the risk.
And they have like 2 followers. It's like, I need to show virtue for my 2 followers. They need to know I am a leader of men. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean,
Come on.
so somebody says here, marriage causes divorce. Says you only really introduce serious risk when you marry, have kids. Assuming you don't do this, it's pretty much risk free. Yeah, that's generally speaking that's true. I mean, although you know, I still think though, and again, this is going to sound sort of hippie-ish and kind of from the wrong side of Twitter, but I do actually. The older I get, I do think that if you bring somebody into your life, and whether that's certainly not dating them full time, but so even just hanging out casually and having sex, you can bring a certain energy into your life that can be disruptive, to say the least. Does that make sense, or am I just being
No, it makes sense. The only thing I want to add to that is if you let it. You need to recognize it for what it is and be on your guard that you not let it take hold of you.
True. That's correct. And that again is about boundaries, isn't it? And frame. But the boundary is okay, right? You know, we're going to hang out for 7 hours. You're going to come around. We're going to sleep together, whatever. But then I'm going to go back. I've got my work still. I'm going to go back to my life. I'm going to do this. You know, like it's when you start to allow them to sort of somehow take over a bit. That's the problem, I think.
Yeah, in my humble opinion, that is indeed like the problem. And like even rejecting somebody is an art. That's even art of seduction. Know how to end.
Yeah, true.
Know how to end things, because like you can't yell at a girl just for doing something you don't like. You know, you can't stomp your feet and act like a toddler and yell at her and call her a poopy head all the time just because like she's her own person. But let's say you just want to end it with somebody. There's no reason not to be charming. Where it's like, hey, I've had a great time with you. We made great memories, but the way things are going right now, I just don't see it happening. It's nothing personal. Well, maybe it is. Like, leave that open to interpretation. But for me, this is just the end of the road, and I wish you all the best. And what was it? I mentioned something. We keep going back to Twitter. Everything is in the abstract, but I said like a response to somebody who said pulling teeth on a date. I'm like, hey, thanks for your time, but I gotta leave. And somebody was like, why would you thank a woman for her time who wastes your time? It's like, oh my God. It's like, oh, it's just a saying. It's just a saying. Stop it. People are really lost. We really have to watch everything we say. It's like,
the idiocy of social media is extraordinary, really. I mean, people are too pedantic about this stuff. I mean, look, you know, you take on you know what you learn online, but you've got to take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. It doesn't mean you've got to go out into the real world and just be this completely antisocial kind of arsehole with everybody. You can still be pleasant. It's just like you want to have your own boundaries and you want to have your own, you know, and that's the important thing. And I think I've got better at that. Maybe by the time I'm 60, I'll be good at it. I think I've got better at it as I've got older. But I'm less blinded by lust than I used to be. That's the thing, you know.
Maybe by the time you're 70, you'll just hook up with a 19-year-old and we'll never see you again.
Well, that's
not a bad way to go.
I don't know. Well, Leo was getting enough criticism, wasn't he, for
48 laws of power, always keep the attention on you.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's a whole other topic area, isn't it, really? You know, the reasons why people are butthurt over that is a whole other topic area, really. I think it's a little bit. I think to assume that everything is always predatory when there's an age difference is incorrect. And as people have pointed out, I'm sure there are plenty of women who would seek to prey on somebody like Leo because he's famous and he's got connections, he's got a lot of money, and he can help them in various different ways. So I think being sort of manipulative can go both ways, right? If we're being honest about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's a whole different can of worms where like, do women have agency or do they not? And from what age do they have agency and when do they not? Where it's like, okay, then we're going to bring in the voting age and we're going to bring in the age of drinking. it's a whole different can of worms on a societal and a governmental level. Even
I think everybody who's adult has agency, and I think it's wrong to suggest that either gender doesn't. But then of course there's the debate about, okay, well, what age do we set adulthood from, and all the rest of it. But obviously you've got you've got it enshrined in law in these different countries. So I think we should regard everybody really as having agency. I mean, but then, well, we get into very muddy waters here, don't we?
Yeah. that's like always the tricky part, where it's like, yeah, somebody's gonna take things out of context, and I don't want that, so I better shut up. It's like, nope, we're not going there. But like, even in the Netherlands a couple of years ago, they were like, we want to have the voting age at 16, and I'm like, nah, we're not. Please don't. Because that's going to open a very nasty can of worms you don't want opened.
Indeed. But we are moving a bit off topic here anyway. So, any final thoughts about not getting enmeshed with people who are maybe? I mean, crazy is obviously the title is a bit clickbaity. It's sort of like, people just have different things going on in their lives. There are different mental states. Some people are more chaotic than others. I think it's more about recognizing what's going to work for you, really, and not bringing people into your life in any form, really, who are going to screw things up. It's kind of as simple as that, isn't it? Which is sort of about boundaries.
It is. I think a lot of like the crazy chicks has to do with how you handle it. How much do you allow? There's an old saying where it's like, women will act as shitty as you let them. I would even go as far as like, people in general will act as shitty as you let them.
No, it's true. It's true. And it is people in general,
Yeah.
It's if you show yourself to be vulnerable and not to have boundaries, then you can get treated badly by women, but you can also get treated badly by men or in other situations. And actually, I'm still reading the Ryan Stone book at the moment, and he talks about this. Obviously, in that book, it's about frame very eloquently.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, people will treat you as you let them. Even Corey Wayne used to write about this. But let's say you do have like a bit of a sense that like, okay, she's not very stable, blah blah blah, but I can have my fun with her, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Be a responsible adult about it. Wrap it up. Check the rubber afterwards. Whatever. It's all up to you yourself to be a responsible adult about this. There are very responsible manners. One can have fun with someone who would be deemed as crazy. And that's all up to you.
Indeed. Absolutely.
Like, control the birth, as Rollo used to say.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think we should call it.
Oh, we had one super chat.
Oh, do we? Where is it?
Yeah, by Juan Do for €2. Even if they thick, Jack. Sounds like blasphemy. No, not if they thick. Not if they thick. I can handle crazy, but not thick and crazy.
No, I'm not really. Yeah, that's not. Yeah.
We almost have the same type. I'm more of party in the front than you, I believe.
Well, I'm very petite, slender, everything. But the essence of that super chat is basically saying, yeah, but if they're hot, surely, and that's the whole point of really what we're saying. I know he's joking, but that's the whole point of what we're saying, really. You have to disregard beauty to some extent in this and make an evaluation of like, actually, if she was one of my mates and not this hot girl, would I put up with this? And if the answer is no, you've got to have a look at what you're doing.
A good example of this as well, and this is the last one, where like, if she's hot doesn't apply. Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yes.
I mean, she is not the best looking out there or whatever, but it is a good example of you let this happen. I mean, it's Will Smith. He could have ran off with Margot Robbie or somebody else, yet he chooses to stay with Jada Pinkett Smith. Oh, but they have kids. It would have been cheaper for him to divorce her and start a better life.
That's
okay, maybe it would have. Yeah.
That's probably, I mean, I don't know a huge amount about their relationship, but that's a whole other ball game, isn't it? Because that's probably like, it might be wife goggles, as they say. You know, he's been with her a long time. And, you know, it's not in the early stages, it's probably about them being hot. But if you're talking about people who've been married for like 20 odd years or whatever, then it's that they are emotionally enmeshed as well. And that's obviously come into play, which again, you know, like you've got to be careful who you get emotionally sort of wrapped up with, because as we were saying before, I mean, the instinct to protect and to go and smack somebody around the face at the Oscars because they've insulted your wife, you know, the instinct to do that obviously only grows stronger the more enmeshed you get with the woman. Okay, and if you get enmeshed with the wrong woman, you might find yourself doing things or in situations, because you've got to protect her, you've got to look after her, you might find yourself in situations that actually you don't really want to be in, you know, because they could be dangerous or they could be harmful to you.
You let her cheat on you and things like that, and ridicule you about her new boyfriend live on TV, things like that. It's like I said, boundaries, people, boundaries.
Indeed. So on that note, and Juan's come back and said, yes, Troy, if they hot, it's hard, lol, which is true. It is hard, but, you know, this is what we're this is what we're saying. You know, the problem is that good things, you know, if something looks too good to be true, this is a final thought, actually, maybe to end on. If something looks too good to be true, maybe it is. And this has happened to me multiple times in my life, where, you know, you meet somebody, you meet a girl, she's so beautiful, she's so sexy, and she seems to she's all over you very quickly, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. You've got to ask yourself, okay, like, is there something that's a little bit amiss here? You know? And frequently there has been, to be honest, because usually the way it normally goes is it takes a little while to build something up. If you've got somebody who's love bombing you, who's all over you immediately, and she's super hot or your type or whatever, it's a bit like, well, hang on a minute, is this just moving a bit too fast? Like, what's going on here? You know, you need to take a step back and try and take emotion out of it.
That's where you can like apply rules for yourself, like I mentioned, like living together, not until like 1.5 or 2 years of dating. So that, just take that off the table right away.
Indeed.
Because that's the biggest one where guys go wrong, I think.
Yeah. Morning Glory says, what countries are you from? Dig the accent. Well, we're from different countries. I'm from the UK. I'm in London. And
the lovely Netherlands. The great orange glory of the Netherlands.
Indeed.
I don't sound like it. I know.
You sound like a sort of Patrick Stewart style actor. British actor.
Nice.
Marvelous.
Patrick Stewart is actually pretty badass. I've never seen Star Trek though. No honesty. Like for all the geeky and nerdy hobbies I have.
Is that because it's for dorks? You are
of all the things.
I know what Star Wars.
I was like, Star Wars I'll watch, Lord of the Rings I can quote, but Star Trek, that just goes too far.
Yeah. You saw you know what I'm referring to though, don't you? You saw Tate's famously, I've never watched Star Wars.
Yep. And then what I found so funny is that he later, like a couple of months later, he followed it up with like his 7 chicks on a couch with him watching Star Wars. Say what you want about the man. He had humor.
Indeed. Well, on that note, what are you up to this week, and actually, we're both on each other's channel, but what are you up to this week? And then I'll say.
Let's say, so tomorrow morning, which is Friday night for you Americans, I'm hosting Red Evening with Rob Says. We are talking about a recent Twitter thread that was made by a guy who was relentlessly dating for 2 years, and there were a couple of very good gems in that thread, of which Rob and I both agreed that only a guy who actually did it can know. So we're going to discuss that, and the author of that thread is going to come on. Other than that, I have 1 spot left for coaching. I have 1 spot open for coaching right now. I only train 5 people at a time, but as of right now, I have 1 spot open. And where is that link? Here it is. So if you're interested in that, I have posted it in the chat. Go check that out. I can help you with your training program, diet program, overall health, weekly form checks, private Discord, and a monthly consultation. So go check that out.
Good stuff.
How about you?
As far as I'm concerned, more videos coming up on a daily basis. I've got some footage from Miami still to go out, and then we've got some videos from LA. So lots of interesting stuff coming up. I'm going to be going live a bit more regularly, I think, again, because I haven't been going live as much. And I think it's a good thing to do because I've been putting up videos, a lot of videos, and videos get good traction and people quite like them, particularly these videos where I'm walking around and talking. People kind of like them. But I think there's a lot of value in just coming on live and actually being able to interact and tell people what's up and just, being a little bit more conversational about it. So I think I'm going to be doing more live. So look out for that. And if anybody wants to talk to me about your dating life, what's going on, how I can maybe help you to improve things, get on a free call with me. There'll be a link below in the description on my channel for that. You can just book a time in my Calendly, and we'll get on the phone and we'll just have a chat and see if we can figure out a strategy for you moving forward.
Go do it, guys. Troy knows his shit. Troy knows what he's doing.
I do, through years of bitter experience.
It is true. It is true. Guys who've been there, they have a certain form of jadedness. They're still happy about it, but you can sense it where it's like, it's also tiresome.
Indeed, it really is. Good stuff, guys. All right, Jack. Well, it's been a pleasure. And we're going to be hopefully doing some more of these going forward. So look out for some announcements about that. And we'll see you again very soon.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.